Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Justin Feldman from Feldman Physical Therapy and Performance, and today we're going to be talking about me. And as John or Meg might say, I always like talking about myself, but no, we're talking about my injury. So if you paid attention to some of our prior videos, you know that this summer, right in the beginning of the summer, I took a tumble off my mountain bike. The bike stopped, I kept going, broke my arm. And so it was definitely an interesting experience for me being on the other side of the treatment table. I've definitely had injuries before, but I think that this is probably my first really traumatic injury. And it had been a while since I had any sort of injury. So this was a neat experience for me going through it. And I think I definitely learned a lot that I know will help me as a provider, but I thought it'd be fun to go through my story here. So like I said, I was mountain biking up at Mount Snow in Vermont. It was my first attempt at downhill mountain biking. I've done regular single track and more cross-country style mountain biking, but this was my first attempt at downhill mountain biking, and I highly recommend it despite the injury. It was a lot of fun, but I was getting tired. It was something new. And I was with a bunch of friends, and I wasn't gonna be the first one to say that I was tired and wanted to stop. And then it started to rain a little bit and things got a little slick, and I don't really remember exactly what happened, but I got a little bit off the trail, really high grass, front tire went into a ditch, and I went flying over the handlebars, landed. Wasn't really sure what I did in the beginning. I knew I heard it. Did that little self-assessment when you stand up, and pretty quickly realized that something was wrong. Luckily, I was with a bunch of my friends from Ski Patrol. They helped me out, and went over to the hospital and was pretty quickly diagnosed with a proximal humerus fracture. So we'll get some graphic up on the screen, but it's basically just way high up in your shoulder, right at the neck of your humerus there. And this type of injury can either be a heal just in a sling, or you need surgery. And I was pretty lucky that mine was borderline. And so I opted to go with the non-surgical route. And I was lucky that that was a good choice, and it worked out well for me, and I was able to avoid the surgery. So before we go any further, I need your help. So we need to try and, in order to grow our YouTube audience here, if you made it this far, first, if you watch it all the way to the end, YouTube loves that. But also if you can go down and hit the like and subscribe button, that would be great. All right, so no surgery, but what does that mean? It means that I got to spend about 3 weeks in a sling. So my arm is right here across my body for about 3 weeks, day and night, even showering, kind of put it here. And I will say I knew what the stakes were. I knew that if I messed this up, then I was looking at surgery and a much longer recovery. So I was really, really diligent not to move my arm. But man, when that sling came off, we'll try and get a picture if I can get Meg to recreate it, but you should have seen Meg's face when she saw how I couldn't move my arm at all. And I think maybe, she might admit to now being pretty concerned about what was going on. But yeah, I was pretty taken back by the amount of weakness, how stiff the range of motion was. And I know I talk to patients all the time that for roughly every day that you're immobilized, you can expect to be looking at about a week to recover from that immobilization. So 3 weeks, 21 days, you're looking at 21 weeks, it's almost half a year. And so that's a lot longer than you would sort of think offhand, not having had surgery. But I was really lucky with where it turned out. And then came the recovery process, which was quite humbling. And even though I knew what I should expect, it was not remotely what I expected. So in those early weeks, as I was first coming out of being immobilized, the biggest thing that I found was that even though really inside, if I analyzed the situation, I knew I was doing okay, but it was really hard to stay motivated and stay positive. And that's where Meg and John were super big supporters and big help for me, because I think even though I knew that everything was going the way it should and that this was going to be a hard process, for some reason, and I think everyone does this, I sort of thought I was going to be the exception to the rule. I was going to take the sling off. I was going to move my arm. Everything was going to be great. And first thing that happened was the minute I took the sling off, I was reminded of an old nerve injury that sort of crept back up on me as a result of being immobilized. And even now, as we're, in the middle of September now, so I'm pretty far along in the timeline, I still can feel some effects of that from being immobilized. But the hardest part was that I would navigate these days of doing really, really well and thinking, all right, this is great, I've turned the corner, and then I'd have 2 or 3 days of not feeling so great, being pretty sore, being pretty stiff, really hard to sleep. And everybody knows once it's hard to sleep, everything else becomes hard. Also, it was just so weak that when I had a great day of exercise, then it would take me 2 or 3 days to recover from that. And if you know me, you know that I like to overdo things or push myself a little hard. And so really in the beginning, I was almost doing too much for it. And it took Meg, I'm gonna say gently yelling at me, but looking back, it probably wasn't that gentle. She just yelled at me, that I needed to give myself more rest days. And really, the minute I started working one day, taking 2 days off, working one day, taking 2 days off, I really started to see a change in the progress. I started to see a change in the way it felt. And that meant I was in a much happier mood too. And then came the fun part. So as I started to see this progress, I was able to get back out to running. I was able to get back on my bike. Unfortunately, I had to start off on the trainer for quite a while, but then big turn recently, I was able to get back out mountain biking with my son Hayden, which made him very excited, made me very excited. I was able to get back out climbing, and that was a lot of fun. That was a big thing to get back to also. But the other part of it is that now I'm in what I always tell patients is like the really tough stage of the rehab, because I can do most things. I still don't quite have the range of motion to swim. I still don't quite have the strength that I need for certain activities, but I can do most things. And so now I'm finding the next challenge is reminding myself and staying motivated to do the specific rehab exercises that I need to be doing, because now that I can get back to things like kettlebell swings and rows and doing some different push-up activities, it's hard to remember to also do my band exercises and to do my side-lying external rotation and to do that alphabet on the wall. And you will all be so happy to know that I'm doing tons of crawling exercises, because if any of you have been patients and I made you do a crawling exercise, I'm sure deep down you just couldn't wait for a chance that I would have to do those crawling exercises. So that stuff is really important, and I have to keep reminding myself, like I often do with patients, once you get back to the fun stuff, you can't forget some of these rehab things, because it's really important to get this to 100% now, because you don't want to let it linger at that 85 to 90% better mark. And that's the point I'm at now, where I need to be staying on myself. Thankfully, I have Meg and John yelling at me. My range of motion is improving. My strength is improving. I can do so many things, but I can definitely still feel some stuff that I need to work on. So also exciting this weekend, heading up for first running race or road race since this. So I'm glad to be able to be back training for that. And thank you guys so much for watching. We'll keep you updated on the rest of the journey. If you made it this far through, make sure you jump down and subscribe to the channel so you keep updated on all the fun stuff coming up.